Hi, I'm Sumit Bose, and this is the Net Hero podcast. Who's it for? It's for you. If you care about the planet and you care about business. We believe that businesses are responsible for a lot of the damage that has been done to the planet, but they're also responsible for finding the solutions. We need innovation, we need ideas, we need people who are trying to make a difference, and that's what this podcast is about. If you know someone who is trying to make a change, then get them to come along on the podcast. Listen in every week, subscribe, and make sure that you follow us on social media. Our two news platforms, Energy Live News and Future Net Zero, cover everything we do. And this episode is recorded live, so enjoy.
Hydrogen. I bet you're thinking, no, not a bloody podcast about hydrogen. You know, I've been a big fan of it since I drove that Toyota hydrogen car about 7-8 years ago. But it's never really taken off. If you look at where hydrogen was supposed to be, I remember doing stories about it 30 years ago that it was going to revolutionize fuel cells. People have talked about it can really decarbonize big power. And yet, if you look globally, you can see that actually it hasn't really taken off. In America, people who are selling hydrogen cars, particularly in the state of California, have pulled back. Plans to build lots of huge hydrogen plants across Europe are on the back burner, or the back stove, should I say. And even here in the UK, where there was a lot of talk about pumping hydrogen into our gas network to try and reduce carbon, there's only been a few little trials, and it hasn't really gone to the way that the government was hoping for a few years ago. So why is that? What are we doing wrong around hydrogen? Is it, as some critics say, just a complete fool's errand because it costs so much to make and its carbon footprint is too high? Or is it that we've just not got around understanding what this technology is? Well, that is what I'm going to discuss today on the podcast. And I'm joined by Dr. Steffen Hoffmann from Bosch, who's an expert, a man who's lighter than air. Steffen, is that right?
Well, thank you for the nice intro, Sumit. I'm not an expert in hydrogen. I'm just a humble guy that is trying to help solve the big energy problems we have as a society. And I think you've pointed it out quite well. Hydrogen is not taking off the way we were hoping to, and I think the reason is that our governments are very much on the electricity train right now. I mean, they believe that is the way to go forward, and that's something we have to change, I think.
If you look at it, you've been with Bosch many years, right? I see that got a
34 years.
Yeah, still young man, Steffen. Don't worry about it. But if you look back, when you joined Bosch, and if you look back at that time, the early 90s, I think everyone had just sort of, I wouldn't say they'd just started, but they were kind of really in that big push for gas, right? The big push that started in the 70s, moved on to the 80s, and it was all that this is much cleaner. People were having a realization about coal. 30 years later, we've pretty much, although I know parts of Europe still got quite a lot of coal, but we're pretty much all on the page, which is we're trying to get rid of it as much as we can. Oil and gas, taking a bit of a different line, especially with Trump. But, people have pushed renewables and they have pushed cleaner gas. But the gas story has never really taken off, whether it's been biogas or, in this case, hydrogen. So looking at where things are now, do you think people still believe that gas has a role to play? You talk about electrification, but a lot of people are saying, let's just get rid of gas altogether. What's your take on that before we discuss hydrogen?
Well, I think I would say probably consumers, the people, very much on this one, look at their governments and look at the guidance that the government gives them. We have governments right now that come out of the situation in Ukraine.
Yeah.
And they are probably, they are still shell-shocked, They say, okay, we don't ever want to get into a dependency on any other country, any remote country again. And that is short-sighted, So the current view is, okay, we want to electrify everything. We want to electrify road traffic, industrial production, heating. And people rarely do the maths. If you do the maths, currently, even at current production levels, we only achieve about 50% of electricity generation from renewables. The rest is, most of our countries, the rest is a mix of nuclear and gas and coal.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to electrify everything, that would double your electricity demand in a very short time. And on top of that, you have data centers around AI and so on. So our thinking is we have a situation globally where you have a number of countries that have climate conditions much more suitable for relatively affordable, cheap production of green electricity via solar PV, but they don't have the demand for that electricity there. And here in our countries, in the more industrialized countries, it's the other way around. Our climate doesn't work for really expanding renewables, but we have this huge demand. So the one thing that hydrogen does is it balances this supply demand imbalance that we have globally, because you can use hydrogen for storing and transporting green electricity. And that's the reason basically why we are saying hydrogen is an absolute necessity. It will happen. It's just
you're so confident, which is really interesting, because I told you at the beginning, I do believe hydrogen has a role to play. But when I go to energy conferences and I talk to people, and I'd like to put this to you, people go to me, well, hang on a second, it's bloody expensive, number one. It's not green. Most of it comes from the oil and gas industry. And then you've got such big costs in trying to either retrofit or do it that there isn't. And then, as you said, what's the point? Look at Toyota. What's the point in building fuel cell cars when everyone's saying, let's go to batteries and the market is, because governments have legislated for it. So why do you say, I still believe hydrogen has a big role to play?
Well, you see, Sumit, when you and I go to energy conferences, it would typically be in the UK. And many of the discussions I have also experienced on hydrogen in the UK is about hydrogen production in the UK.
Yes.
And there I totally agree with everybody else. I'm very skeptical. Why? Because I'm saying we already have a shortage of green electricity production in the country.
Yeah.
We need everything that we can produce here for use as electricity. There's nothing left to use it in electrolysis and produce green hydrogen here in the UK. That green hydrogen production needs to happen elsewhere, in the Middle East or in South America or in parts of North America. That's basically my earlier point. We will soon find out that we will not be able to decarbonize to the extent necessary on the basis of our own green power or green electricity generation capabilities. So we will have to rely on countries that are far away from us, that have a much more suitable climate, and in particular that have the capability to produce much cheaper. If you go to the Middle East, for example, you can produce with the prices that for solar PV that have come down so much, you can produce electricity at 1 to 2 cents per kilowatt hour. That's unbeatable anywhere else in the world.
Of course.
Yeah.
But the problem is, there was a plan to build an interconnector from Morocco that just got shelved. There are plans to have interconnectors that haven't really taken off. And I do agree with you. If you look down the green hydrogen route, this is the thing, the economics, the maths, and it probably depends where you are, like you just said.
Yeah.
But people go, actually, you could do it, but there's the energy cost and then the transporting it. There was the infrastructure. So why do you think? There's the creation of Hydrogen UK over the last year. There's more of these kind of trying to get the industry together, but politicians are not listening.
If you ask why is it not taking off, that's exactly that's exactly the reason. We cannot do this without the governments. And that has all happened before in the era of oil and gas many decades ago. You would start with an energy partnership between countries, where two governments, one in the Middle East and the UK, let's say, sit together and say, okay, look, we form a partnership, and that is a 20, 30-year energy partnership. And then in the second step, they rally private companies around them that then guarantee the production on the one hand and the offtake on the other. But the starting point needs to be the two governments sitting together, and that is not happening. Partly because probably they haven't done the maths completely. This is not done in numbers properly.
But Steffen, where you talk about that, and it sounds interesting, but there seems to be, and look, you spread in bigger circles than me, but I don't see much across Europe. Let's talk about Europe before we talk about China and other places. But across Europe, I don't see France shouting, "Hey, hydrogen's good," or Germany. Even if there's reticence here, I don't see it in Spain or Italy. I don't see it pretty much anywhere except some scientists, people in the hydrogen industry, and then I can see it in China, I can see it in India really taking off, but that's slightly different. So why is it, do you think, you say that this kind of deal idea, if the Middle East, which can do it cheaper, and probably would want to export that because they know oil and gas is on its downward curve, why aren't governments in the West, particularly in Europe, open to the idea?
Again, I can only speculate. It's a mix of different things. There is right now, maybe with some people, the idea that you need to focus on one technology because you shouldn't allow the investment push or the sizable investment that is in any case necessary to be spread too much into different technologies. And of course you have people on the electricity side that push electricity.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking as someone, the company, our heritage is electric power. Mean, all of our products originally are electric. So I'm making the hydrogen point from the other end, if you speak. If you think no, but I think it's really to a large extent it's the political or the geopolitical situation that we have right now that makes politicians say, okay, I want to be independent. I want to solve this energy problem here in the UK, in my borders, under my full control. But again, if they do the maths, they will have to find out that will not work. It will lead to a supply gap down the road, and then you can see what happens. For sure, we will not be able to achieve our decarbonization targets. We will not be able to achieve the net zero 2050 target. And worse, you can ask yourself then
blackouts. Yeah, of course.
What am I going to say? I don't need data centers here because I don't have the power for that. Does that then mean that you are beginning to say, I don't want to be part of AI, which is a big tech story of our days? It doesn't lead to a good outcome. That's my point.
But this is an interesting point that struck me the other day, and I knew we were going to have a chat. If you look at nuclear, right? And are you German or Austrian?
I'm German.
Right. So everyone remembers what happened after Fukushima. You were about to go and do this big push on nuclear, and then Angela Merkel at the time pulled Germany completely out of it, and you then ended up importing. And if you look at what's happened, maybe because of Ukraine, but now the IEA report, new nuclear is on the bounce. People are going, right, let's go for nuclear, which they wouldn't even have done 5 years ago. We've had Hinkley Point, we've got now Sizewell C, we've got Wilfer, you've got in other parts of Europe a real kind of nuclear renaissance. And that follows your narrative about kind of, electrification. But we haven't seen the hydrogen kind of science part, which is, it's as exciting as fusion, the hydrogen thing. And again, I wondered what your view was on why that technology, which again was not popular, is now become de rigueur.
No, I mean, maybe a word on nuclear. I think deciding to let existing nuclear power plants run for a longer period of time is definitely a good idea.
Yeah.
And I would not even try to defend the decision of my own government years ago. I can give you, if you like, a moment.
No, don't worry about that.
The reason why she probably voted that way or decided. So let existing power plants run longer. That makes a lot of sense. Second point, if you invest into new nuclear power plants based on the existing technology, I don't believe in it at all.
Really?
These are projects that will be simply too expensive. If you look at many of the Hinkley is a good point, out of the timeline, out of budget, and that's not the only example for that. The third point on that, small modular reactors, which is now
SMRs,
technology, that is very, very promising. That looks very, very good, but you are looking at a timeline that won't really help us on the decarbonization targets. I believe that can be really, really a solution in 30, 40 years from now. But that's too late for our problem at hand.
Your company is, people like this, we were laughing about before we came on air, but hand tools, washing machines, that's what people kind of know Bosch. But you're a big industrial company and you're across the piece. Where are you using hydrogen yourselves, and where are you seeing hydrogen being deployed?
Well, we are developing and manufacturing a number of products across the whole hydrogen value chain that starts at the production of hydrogen. We do water purification solutions, which is the first step before you go into electrolysis. You need to deionize water. We have a solution that processes seawater. That's also quite important because if you think ahead, hydrogen production in the future will most likely happen in arid countries where water is not readily available. We do stacks for electrolyzers. We do a number of products on cryopumps, for example, on transport of hydrogen via pipelines. And then we have a number of products on the application side, fuel cells, and also boilers for heating homes and industrial plants and so on. So this is our activity. But as I said before, we are an electricity company. So we have a number of products that use electricity. We have a heat pump, a manufacturer, by the way, for electric heating. So we are quite, I would say, technology agnostic. We're making the point for hydrogen because of the supply side of things. That looks very challenging right now. It looks like we're not on the right track.
But you run a company, right? So you look at the book and the balance sheet and everything like that. Do you think you're backing the wrong horse in investing in fuel cells and investing in kind of electrolyzers? Because you would think, based on what we've just talked about, you might build this stuff and the politicians go, we're not interested, mate. Adios, Steffen. Give me some more batteries instead.
Well, we've probably invested more in electric solutions, in electric powertrains for vehicles and in heat pumps than we're investing in hydrogen. No, but our firm belief is that it would be wrong to focus on just one technology. We've always been a company that was of the opinion that we need to allow and utilize various technologies. That is the best way, possibly the only way, to achieve our targets. And that's the reason why we're investing in all these different technologies.
You've worked abroad, right? You've worked in Russia. You worked in the Far East as well. And I said before we started recording that, I get stories across my desk talking about, where China's going with hydrogen, where India is doing a lot on hydrogen and actually deploying it in fleets and stuff. There are conferences taking place in South Korea recently and all of that. Is this kind of reticence to hydrogen a very much European thing globally? When you put your global hat on, you look around. Do you see different markets?
I would think so to a certain extent. I see a
Right.
lot more push from China into
Yeah.
hydrogen. I mean, China, as you know, they have huge energy needs
Of course.
to satisfy, and they can't afford to do just hydrogen. For them, hydrogen
Yeah,
is
of course.
one of many solutions that they're following, and some of them are old fossil fuels that they're also still utilizing. But yes, there is a lot more push of China into world regions where hydrogen production can be done much easier than in Europe or than in China. But I think also we'll see down the road more from North America in that respect.
Really? Right. Interesting. What, because of the oil and gas boom that?
Yeah, I mean, there is right now. You see that the drill baby drill trend that will pass, and the Americans do the same calculation that we are doing, that we have to do, and they will come to the same conclusions. And now the advantage that they have compared to Europe is that they're not as fragmented as we are.
No, true.
We find that time and time again, find it, by the way, also in defense, that if you add up the defense budgets of the EU 27 plus the UK, you end up at an impressive amount. But look at how we spend it, right?
Yeah.
And the Americans and the Chinese are much better in making use of the size of their countries.
Where do you see hydrogen being used? Right. So if you look at just this week at the time we're recording, there's been a progression to create this kind of hydrogen hub up in the Humber estuary. We've seen a couple of trials of hydrogen as a gas to, as you say, work in the boiler in my house or whatever. Very small trials, maybe they're more, you probably know, but of kind of hydrogen furnaces for decarbonizing steel. And then there's the side that perhaps most of us would probably experience is, will planes be made of either SAF or will they be on hydrogen? Will we have trains or boats, instead of where batteries won't work with hydrogen? So do you see it, if it has this role that you clearly believe it still does, where do you see its actual biggest presence? Because I can't see it being in our houses. Can you? I don't know.
Well, let me maybe begin by something else. We shouldn't just look at hydrogen in gaseous form. Okay. I think what will happen in those countries in the Middle East that I believe are very good at or very well suited in producing hydrogen, they would typically not leave it at that. They produce hydrogen, but the best thing for them to do would be to keep processing it in their countries and convert it into ammonia or eventually hydrogen-based synthetic fuels.
Okay.
And then those are, by the way, much easier to transport, also ship them, because hydrogen in gaseous form you need to
it leaks a lot. Yeah.
With ammonia and hydrogen-based synthetic fuels, it's easy. You can put them on an oil tanker and just ship them wherever they need to go. So when you ask the question of how do you use hydrogen, where do you use hydrogen, you need to include those byproducts, and then you have basically a whole range of possible applications. I mean, in road traffic, we very much believe in hydrogen in fuel cells, particularly for commercial vehicles. Commercial vehicles are not ideal for electric powertrains because of the weight and because of the heavy use. A typical truck is in use, how many hours per day. There's simply no time to charge. Batteries would be, or these vehicles would be extremely heavy with the batteries you need. So that is a really, really good use case in road traffic. On the heating side, take the UK again as an example. the UK is unique in that it has an asset, which is called the grid, the gas grid, that supplies 80% of households. Instead of just throwing that away, no longer using it, why not use it and convert it into hydrogen use, and heat your homes with hydrogen boilers?
But people say that, it leaks, it'll be expensive, it won't, some I don't know, you've probably met the same person I know that is quite big in the industry who gives a very big lecture about, I won't mention his name, but it's always about kind of, oh, it'll just cost too much, it's just not worth it, it's a folly. I don't know.
I don't think so. No. See, the UK has used hydrogen in the past. People have forgotten that.
Town gas,
back in the 50s. There was city gas, I think it was called. It was a blend. It was not green hydrogen. It was therefore it's not saying we should copy that situation again, but
I get it.
But the concerns were always there that and it leaks. Yes, it does. It leaks to the same extent that you have leaks in natural gas, but that is easy to control via technology, and I wouldn't worry a thing.
Yeah.
People don't have to worry.
You'd be happy to have one in your house. Maybe you've got one, Steffen.
I would definitely install one in my house. Yeah.
A couple of things before we end. The use case for hydrogen you talk about. There's also an energy case for hydrogen, isn't there? Because people say, and again, I can't remember the figures to hand, but it's a bit like kind of the amount of kind of potential energy that you get, the bang for your buck in that way, from a litre of hydrogen fueling something compared to 200 batteries or whatever. It's a very efficient kind of fuel, same as the reason that petrol was used in cars in the beginning. So do you think, talking about right back away where you started, you said they're going for electrification, but governments have been kind of reticent. Do you think some of these things about actually, if you look at the cost, you look at the efficiency, and you look at the time to get things done, there might be a change of heart around the potential of hydrogen?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that very soon we will have a clash of, or we will have conflicting targets for our societies becoming very, very visible, because governments will have to, or societies, countries will have to make a choice. Do they want to keep operating as industrialized countries? Do they want to be part of AI, of the tech future? Do they what lifestyle are they prepared to offer to their people? And how important is this pure thinking of a complete energy independence?
Yes.
And governments will have to make choices, and I think no doubt the choice will be that you go into these energy partnerships, that you find ways to mitigate the risk. And I'm not saying we should allow a dependency on one country or one world region again, to the extent that we've had it with Russia. But I mean, many people invest their money in funds, and they do what everybody else would do in such a situation. You balance your risk, you create a portfolio that mitigates that risk, and that's exactly what we should do on energy supply.
The last thing I want to talk about, and I don't know whether you have much knowledge of this, but it is the source of hydrogen. So obviously there's the blue, the green, the pink and yellow, but there's this new one which is like natural hydrogen, white. I think they're calling it white hydrogen. I don't know what they're calling it, but the natural reservoirs that are underground and things. So in a way, some people are saying actually we could end up having a drilling industry based around hydrogen again if it really takes off. People are talking about going to the moon and all of that, whatever. Is there enough, in your opinion, hydrogen out there right now in the form that we can use? If we decided actually we're going to have a portfolio, there'd be enough to do the things we've talked about? Or is it going to always be niche because of the costs, the ability to get it, and the availability of it?
I mean, first, you're right. I don't know too much about what you call white hydrogen, natural hydrogen. I would doubt that we have natural resources to the extent necessary to make hydrogen a real factor in our energy supply. I think and gray and blue hydrogen, they all can play a role in getting the ball rolling to create
do something rather than nothing.
But at the end, we are talking only about green hydrogen if we want to really decarbonize our countries. It's only about green hydrogen.
Well, I think it's an interesting topic. I'm really glad you joined me today. Thank you very much for coming on. And let's see where we are in a few years. Maybe hydrogen. We'll be wearing hydrogen t-shirts.
Yeah, I don't know. And then we'll come back to your show.
Steffen, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Sumit.
No, my pleasure. Ladies and gents, what's your thoughts? Get in touch on social media. What do you think? Do you think hydrogen is being overlooked? Should we be looking at it? And are you looking at it in your business for some bigger, wider uses? My thanks to Rob for the production this week. I'll see you on the next episode of the Net Hero Podcast.
You've just heard the Net Hero Podcast from FutureNetZero.com. Join us as we help you find ways to cut your carbon footprint as we head towards net zero. Subscribe and follow us on social media. FutureNetZero.com. Better business, better planet.